Hello again, and welcome back to Illegally Cited. This is Jesse, aka BGFH, and I am back for hopefully another quick video this time. Just wanted to give you kind of my thoughts on yet another tech event that happened earlier today. What was it, last week or 2 weeks ago? I think it was last week. We had Microsoft's Build event. Well, this week it's Google's turn, and they did the keynote for the Google I/O Tech conference this week. And yeah, it was really interesting to see what Google had in store. And of course, early next month we're going to have Apple's WWDC, so we're curious to see what they will do. But we'll get to that in a little bit. So again, this is not going to be, it's not meant to be a comprehensive rundown of the day's events or the whole keynote itself. I just kind of want to draw your attention to kind of some of the highlights that I found interesting throughout the keynote, because I'm really interested. Like I said, Apple has paved the way for accessibility, but both Google and Microsoft have been really catching up over the last several years. I've already talked about how I've been impressed with both Microsoft's their openness and their accessibility initiatives over the past couple of years. And Google is actually in a similar boat. Right now, just for something to look at, we're looking at the Google Home speaker page. I've already done a hardware review on the Google Home speaker, so if you haven't checked that out, I would recommend doing that because the Google Home speaker is actually pretty awesome. And I want to say that that for a limited time, I think you can get it for actually pretty cheap. I think I saw something on Twitter not too long ago. I think I even retweeted it, where they were selling it for like $64 or something like that. I'm like, ooh, man, if I didn't already own one, I would jump on that. So, Google's keynote. Well, since we're talking about the Google Home, let's start there. Yeah, they're definitely giving Amazon a run for their money with their Echo speaker and Echo speaker or Echo family of speakers and stuff. The Google Home is definitely getting better. I haven't played with it myself yet, but they do support multiple users now, so you can actually have it recognize up to 5 or 6 people's different voices. So let's say if I were to ask my speaker to say, hey, what does my calendar look like for today, or ask it a specific question maybe that's more tied to me versus if I had someone else living in my home, if I had a spouse or roommate or whatever, we could set that up so that when I asked for my calendar, it would bring up my stuff. When they asked for their stuff, they could just speak naturally and it would be fine there. So they already have that out. But they're talking about opening it up even more. So, other developers are going to be able to make more skills for it, basically similar to Alexa. And the whole technology behind Google Home and a lot of their other technologies, they spent a lot of time talking about their Google Assistant. I mean, this was a big thing last year at I/O, but this year they're really doubling down on, it's not the mobile revolution anymore. It's basically more of like an AI revolution, because we're not just doing things on our phones. Sometimes we do it on our TV, our phone, our tablets, our computers, smart appliances, Internet of Things, all this kind of crazy stuff. So having that AI to be able to intelligently not only handle your requests, but intelligently know what you want to do and put the content where it needs to be. So getting back to the home, Amazon the other day just said, oh, hey, by the way, you can do voice calls from Echo to Echo. And I haven't done a voice call, but I've done a couple of messages back and forth with Jawbreaker the other day. That was sort of interesting. But Google has one-upped them definitely, and sometime fairly soon, not out yet, but you're going to be able to actually call using your Google Home speaker. Just call any landline or cell phone in US and Canada, basically North America. So you can call. You can't receive calls starting out, and that might come later when they figure it out a little bit better. but they want to handle privacy and different things like that. But that could be kind of cool. You could call any landline or cell phone for free. That's pretty cool. So basically, when you call them, by default, it would be some kind of like an anonymous number or a private number. But if you want to, you're going to be given the choice to link your speaker, link your Google Home to your cell phone number, so that when people receive your call, as you're calling from the Google Home speaker, you're going to be able to hear it, or they'll know who is calling because it'll be linked to your phone. Be like, oh, okay, that's just this guy calling. Cool. So there's that. They're working a lot again with the assistant being able to basically being able to put information where you want it. So one of the examples was they were like, oh, okay, well, you asked about a certain destination. Okay, well, I'm just getting ready to go. The home would give you the information, and then you'd say, okay, let's go. And then it would say, okay, well, this is the phone that you have linked up with your home, and so it would just say, okay, we'll just bring up Google Maps on whatever phone device it is you're using, and boom, you're good to go, and you can go to your destination. Speaking of phones, Google Assistant is officially now on iOS, so it is not just a Google thing anymore. You can run it, or not just an Android thing anymore. You can run that on iOS, and it is out now. I have downloaded it already to my iPhone, and I've played with it a little bit. Again, it's early, so I found a couple limitations and a couple little weird voiceover quirks that I'm going to report here fairly soon, but I want to play with it a little bit more. So obviously the downside to Google Assistant, even being on the iPhone, is that, it's not like Android where you can say, I want this web browser to be the default. I want this mail client to be the default. I want, this text-to-speech engine or whatever. Apple, you can do the stuff, but you have to go within their sandbox, their own little apps. So you can't replace Siri with the Google Assistant. You have to go into their app. So it is another step. But if you were to leave it open, you can just have it in the background and call it up. I haven't done this yet, but they also have there's a widget. So if that little left screen on your the far left home screen where you have all your widgets and things, or your lock screen or whatever, you can access it quickly through there. So it's not as convenient as it would be on Android, but it's there. And if you are invested in Google services, be it YouTube or Google Music or Maps or Photos or whatever it is, you have more places. Again, just like Microsoft, Google is being a lot more open. It's like, hey, you want to use our stuff? Use it on Windows, use it on Mac, use it on iOS or Android or wherever. Go ahead. So we'll get more to that probably in a little bit. So that's another thing that you can do with your speaker. You can dump stuff off to not just your phone, but let's say that you ask it the weather, or you ask for your day's calendar. If you are currently running like a Chromecast or a Chromecast-enabled TV, you can also have, when the home speaker says that information to you, it can also display that relevant information to you visually on your screen. So, they showed like I asked it the weather, and then it would bring up it would show you the forecast on the bottom of the screen, kind of like your little TV guide thing. So, that's pretty cool. So it's intelligently working with whatever devices you have connected and putting the information where you might want it. They're adding all kinds of other different things to the speaker, and like I said, they spent a lot of different time doing different things with Google Assistant. So like one of the cool things was you're going to be having these third-party skills, and they've added financial transaction abilities now. So basically you're going to be able to, on stage they did this demonstration of they ordered from Panera Bread. But other places obviously they're going to be supported too. But in this one, just basically using a conversation, the lady just said, oh, hey, I want to order a sandwich from Panera Bread. And they're like, okay, what do you want? And they're like, yeah, I'd like to order a blah, blah, blah or I want to order this salad with this thing and substitute ham for turkey or whatever. And it's like, okay, do you want to add this on the side? Yes or no. And then you just say it, and then it would say, oh, okay, your total is blah blah blah. You want to order it because it's synced up with Google Wallet, and yeah, boom, like literally within like 15 seconds, she ordered a meal, for delivery. So it's like, you don't have to go into a separate app. You don't have to log into anything. It just knows, like, because, it uses your GPS and things like, oh, you're here, or it uses your home. I don't know if it just goes by default for your home address, or if it'll be like, oh, you're here. Maybe you want it delivered here. I'd have to look at the fine tune details of that. But some really interesting, just like I said, human conversation stuff instead of having to go through so many steps to do a lot of your common basic tasks. Now, with the assistant, one of the other really interesting things, it's not out yet, but I really want to see when it does. Sometime, I don't know if it's going to be later this summer or later this year, but they're having this thing called Google Lens. And as part of Assistant, and what you can do is you're using your camera, and they use a few different examples. So like one of them was, you walk up you're in front of a building, and you're like, oh, well, what is this building? Or, I want more information about it. So you snap a picture of it, or you use the lens feature, and it might tell you, oh, if it's a business, it might tell you their hours. It might tell you, their rating. Let's say it's a restaurant, they might tell you the rating. They might have a link to the menu or other relevant tasks that you could do. Maybe you want to call them so you can make a reservation. You want to get directions to there, whatever. But like just all kinds of different things, like intelligently. Another one, they took a picture of like it was able to identify a specific type of flower, and he was kind of joking like, well, I have allergies, so I'm not sure what this flower is, but it's driving me crazy, so you can kind of find out cool things like that. But there's again, with this camera stuff, there's a lot of really interesting potential with this AI and smart image recognition technology, both that Microsoft and Google are doing, that I think is going to be potentially in the next few years, especially as the technology gets better and faster and just more prevalent. I think it's actually going to be super, super cool for blind and visually impaired users. I think they even mentioned that as part of their keynote. They're like, oh, this could be really helpful for blind and visually impaired. But I can see all kinds of stuff like that. Like I haven't released the video yet, but I recorded an app that that I found to be really cool that is doing some of that stuff right now on the iPhone. So look for that pretty darn soon. But yeah, so this Google Lens is going to be something to look out for, and that is going to work on, if you have an iOS device, you can still open up your, when it comes out, you can open up your Google Assistant app and be able to use the Lens feature from there. So yeah, you'll have the access to that. God, there's so many things. They did a lot of stuff with photos, and you might laugh, but like, let's say you have family members, and everyone takes photos of things, or you've taken a photo. Maybe you've taken a picture of a receipt or a business card, and there's ways to get at the information from that. They did. Like you're going on a tour of like a little tour of things, and there's all these buildings, and like I don't remember exactly what that was. You run that photo through Lens, and it's like, oh, that's what this building is, and you can get information about it. You can blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. And there's they had a bunch of stuff with like sharing your photo library with friends and choosing friends and family and choosing what you want to use. So like, do you want to share all of your stuff, or do you want to share just the pictures of these people or these settings or from this time frame, that kind of a thing. One of the other kind of neat things was they showed this tech where, again, just like Microsoft, being able to kind of visually manipulate some of the photos automatically, where the example they showed was kind of cool. They showed this girl playing, I don't know, must have been in a playground or something, I forget, but it was behind this kind of, those little metal fences like you have around like a school playground or whatever. And so the fence was in front of the girl. You could see the girl, but the fence was in the foreground. They just hit a button, and the fence went away, and you just like she was right in front of you. So that was kind of a neat and practical thing that you might want to do. But, again, with all this smart technology, being able to work with and manipulate and identify what's in a picture, again, I wouldn't dismiss some of this stuff right off the bat as a blind or visually impaired person, because that could actually be helpful for you. Another thing that they're doing is they're doing these albums now, because, Apple started it with their little slideshow things that they do. Microsoft did something similar not long ago. But this one, they're doing a similar thing where it can intelligently take, your best photos of an event or a person or whatever and mix them together, and then you can add what you want to them. But they're going a step further and say, oh, what if you want to pick, a physical picture? You can configure this basically photo book. And, again, they use the example for Mother's Day, and they're like, oh, maybe, as a gift for your mom, maybe you want to, you have a bunch of pictures of the family, or, a fun memory that you guys had. You could, build this little photo album. Make sure you have all the pages, and it'll intelligently arrange them. And you can arrange them if you want to, but instead of going through all the work manually, it'll just go, oh, okay, we'll lay it out like this. You can tweak it a little bit, and then you say, okay, well, this is how many pages it is. This is this is how much it'll cost, and if you want to, you can pay right with your wallet then, and they'll send you a physical copy of a photo album, basically. So that's again, for people who are, I don't really use physical photos very much, but if you're into that, that's a very convenient way to go, actually. So that's kind of cool. God, what else? I mean, there's so many things, just all kinds of examples of Google Assistant, being able to ask it things, being able to, have it do things for you, kind of anticipating, like, again, with the Google Home of like, oh, you're, just hanging around watching TV or something, but you got to be somewhere. And they know that, like, oh, hey, I see this thing on your calendar, and I see that traffic is really bad, so I'm actually going to give you a basic little visual indicator on the speaker. And if for a blind and visually impaired person, it might also be helpful to have an audio indicator as well. But I don't think they're doing that right now. But basically, it'll give you like a visual flashing notification. You can say, hey, I almost said the keyword and set off my speaker. But you can say, hey, keyword, what's up? And it'll say, oh, hey, well, based on, I see you have this event in an hour and a half, but the traffic is really bad. You might want to head out in about 25 minutes. So that's kind of a neat thing. It ties into your like whole Google Now, Google Assistant kind of a thing there. Like I said, I mean, I could go on and on about like all the different little examples that they gave, but the Google Home, the Google Assistant, being able to have that on Android, iOS, the speaker, all those different places, that was pretty cool. And then they talked about Android O a little bit. We still didn't get a name. I was really hoping they would tell us what the name was, and I'm secretly hoping that it's Oreo, subconsciously marketing. Let me tell you, when K came out, I bought a few Kit Kats because I'm like, Kit Kat. That's some good some cross brand marketing there they got going. But Oreo. I don't know what it's going to be, but they're still calling it Android O. If you want to get a preview build of it, I guess you can get it now. You can get a preview build of it now if you're, just remember, don't use it on a primary device unless you're really open for adventure. But yeah, it's going to come out later this summer, and they went over some features of that. And this one, they're really focusing on like security and performance, and like maybe not sucking your battery. So they're kind of putting like limitations on like, hey, you're doing all this stuff in the background, all these apps, maybe you should only do so much of that, and then we'll stop and try to manage your battery a little bit better, so that you don't have to worry about running out of battery so quickly. We'll see how well that's implemented, and anything that saves battery life is good in my book, because that's one of the things that, especially as a really frequent smartphone user, I go through my batteries pretty quick. I got to charge it every night, so that's a common concern for a lot of people. They didn't go into a whole lot about Android O. They said, we're going to have different sessions on it. You'll find out a lot more about it in the next few days. But they just kind of gave over, like a lot of their basic stuff, as like I said, as far as performance and battery life and things like that. One thing that I thought was really kind of cool, so they called it, what was it, VPS, I think? Unfortunately, you're going to have a special supported phone for it. I don't quite understand the underlying technology in it. I guess it's somewhat being used already in some ways, but basically, this VPS is you have GPS for outdoor navigation, but they touched on this indoor navigation thing a little bit, and they were talking about like how based on like your movement and it can tell where you are, and then your visual stuff with like your image recognition through your Google Assistant. You could go to like a big box store or a grocery store, and it could help you find that product that you want on the shelf. Now, that sounds really cool, but I have some reservations about how well that's actually going to work. Partly because, I mean, you have to do it visually. You probably, like you probably would want to look at like the aisle, like the signs up high over the aisles, and then you figure out what those are, and then go from there. Or unless the store has like a really strict layout, because in shopping, one of the worst things, and I'm sure all of you know this, but like, let's say you learn where things are. You go to your grocery store, your favorite little whatever store, and you're like, oh, okay, I know where things are. Just as you learn all those things, you learn the locations of everything. What do? They rearrange everything. They move. Oh, well, this special rack is over here now, and this item is over here because we want to highlight it with this. And it's like, why did you just move all this stuff? I just figured out where everything was. Really? Did you guys really have to do that? So, I mean, but for certain things, maybe navigating an airport, or maybe, it'll be really interesting. Maybe like a stadium event or something like that, like, oh, I can tell, the layout of the seats don't change. You could be like, oh, okay, I need to find my seat. And again, we had talked a little bit about something like that. I had mentioned that in the CSUN video that I did a while back. That was one of their sessions back then. So, yeah, indoor navigation, hopefully pretty soon it's going to start becoming more of a thing, because I would love that. If I could just go to whatever store and, either using my camera or eventually maybe just wearing a pair of sunglasses that pairs with my phone. I got me a Bluetooth headset. Maybe I'm wearing my AfterShokz, and, I can hear what's around me, but I can just look around and be like, and if it's fast and live recognition, you just look around, and then if I, tap my sunglasses or something, like, oh, that's that's a bunch of soup cans, or that's a whole bunch of Campbell's soup, or oh, here's some, just being able to kind of independently find your way around some of the places that can be a little bit more frustrating for a blind or visually impaired person. I don't know. Within, I'm cautiously optimistic in thinking that, maybe in the next 5-10 years, we might be a little bit better in that area. It wouldn't surprise me. So that was kind of a highlight. I'm like, oh, that could be really cool. So I talked about home. I talked about Assistant. I talked about Assistant coming to iOS, which is out now. All the different things going to like your TV or your phone or whatever. What else did they do? What else did I find that was really interesting? Oh, of course, they covered AR and VR as well, augmented and virtual reality. And they didn't spend hardly any time on it, a couple minutes. But they too they are partnering with HTC, the Vive folks, and Lenovo, and they apparently are going to be working on some inside-out tracking standalone VR devices as well. So in addition to having your phone virtual reality stuff, they're kind of looking at kind of a similar thing to what Microsoft is doing. So hey, you know what? If we can improve this technology quick, and then maybe that stuff filters up to the big boys, a couple of years from now, maybe I get an Oculus Rift 2 or something that has, the quality, if not better than the Oculus, but no wires, or not having to worry about cameras, camera tracking, where I got to be like, oh, well, I'm in this play area, but I have to have my cameras aimed just like this. And if I, yeah, I'm pretty intrigued to see where this kind of standalone device comes in. But one thing, that I just thought of, and I didn't really mention in the Microsoft video regarding this, standalone devices are cool, but one unintentional, albeit clunky but useful side effect of having something like the Vive or the Oculus Rift that does connect to a computer, that does provide some extra level of accessibility. So should an app or an experience or game not be accessible, maybe I can't read the menu, maybe I can't read some tutorial or dialog box or setting in a VR experience. I have, at least in a lot of cases, I can attempt to sort of lift up my Oculus Rift on up on my forehead, look at my screen to which the headset is being mirrored, and maybe with or without Windows Magnifier, I can at least attempt to read what it is they're trying to tell me, or to find that interface element that I need to activate. I suppose, depending on if it's running Android or whatever flavor operating system, maybe you could use something like Reflector and mirror that to your computer like I would an Android or iOS device, like I have been doing for my iOS videos. But if it's all in the headset, if you can't see it within the headset, you're kind of boned. You don't really have a way, unless there's some other cord or some other wireless thing. Maybe, with the Google one, maybe it could, again, connect to, like, you could mirror it to a Chromecast device or something. I don't know, or an app on the computer. But that's a potential pitfall of these standalone devices, and I didn't even really know. I was just excited about it last week when we talked about the Microsoft stuff. But, I just thought of that earlier today as I was thinking about AR and VR tech, and I'm thinking, well, yeah, it's great to have this standalone technology, but yeah, what if I can't see it in the headset? I don't have a backup, a screen to be able to try to look at the mirrored image. So it's going to have to be a lot more trial and error to maybe figure that stuff out. So we'll see what happens with all that technology, but I'm hoping to God that one of these companies, be it Microsoft or Google, gets it right. And especially both of them are sort of acknowledging, especially I would say a little bit more so Microsoft these days, but both Microsoft and Google are kind of looking into accessibility more. So I'm hoping that one of these companies, as they start making these standalone devices or working in virtual reality a bit more, I'm hoping that one of these guys will start to put, at least for their basic framework, for selecting apps and getting around their interface and everything, I'm hoping that some of that stuff will have some accessibility included in it sooner rather than later. I'm not. I'm cautiously hopeful. I wouldn't say that I'm like excited that it's going to happen. Again, a couple years ago, if you said, if you would have asked me, I would have said, yeah, they're going to make their own headset, but there's not a chance. There's not a chance this is going to be accessible in any form. Now at least there's a ray of hope. There's a lot of game accessibility stuff. You've got Global Accessibility Awareness Day actually tomorrow. But you have a lot more attention being paid, and even little demos and acknowledgments on the main keynote stages, so the word is actually getting out to people more. So you're telling me there's a chance. classic, of course, your Dumb and Dumber quote, but you're telling me that there's a chance. It's in the realm of possibility. They mentioned AR a little bit. Again, they're doing some stuff. So they've had these Google, what is it, Explorers or something, where you can take these virtual field trips in virtual reality. But now they're hoping to use augmented reality. So like they gave the example of like, oh, I want to, you're teaching a science class in school, and instead of being in your own isolated headset, if you have these things where you look through glasses or you look through a phone or whatever, a device, and you can actually like project your volcano on a table in the classroom so you can see how the thing erupts. Or maybe you have a model of the solar system, or a model of a famous landmark, and you can talk about it in a history class or something like that. So yeah, I mean, everyone's kind of going to augmented reality too, and which is cool because, hey, I'd like to check that out myself. Otherwise, I know I'm missing some stuff. We're gonna wrap it up here pretty quick, but I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that really stood out to me. Oh, I should have also mentioned they're talking about another Android version of Android Go. Now this is basically a low-end optimized version of Android for, we often think about, US, Canada, major countries in like Europe or whatever. But, we don't really think about, a lot of the people who don't have technology or don't have access to the internet, developing countries and people. There's a lot of places that they're not online, or they're just starting to get an infrastructure. They're just starting to be able to get basic technology or to get online for the first time. And so, those markets, they got to make these devices cheaper, and in order to do that, they got to make it so that, because regular Android, you run that with like, you try to run that on a device that has a gig of RAM or less, I think it's going to run like garbage, So they're taking this Android Go concept, and they're looking at shooting for, what is it, like 512 to a gig of RAM. But they're kind of stripping down some of the features. They're optimizing a lot of things. They're making some different changes to the underlying operating systems and apps and services, so that like not only will it drain as much battery, but it won't use as much data. You'll have more control. The example they gave, and actually I kind of want this for the regular YouTube app in some cases, but they gave the example of the YouTube app. Like, oh, okay, well, you look at a video, you can get like this little slideshow preview of like, oh, is this a video that I might want? If it is, then you tap on it, and then it gives you like, oh, what actual video quality do you want? And, do you want to download it for later? Maybe you found a place that has Wi-Fi, so you could download it and watch it later so you don't use any of your data. Maybe you want to share a video with a friend, so you use kind of like a nearby communication or Bluetooth to transfer your video or content to your friend directly, device to device, instead of using any of your data plan. Oh, which reminds me, the other thing that I'm glad that Google Home is doing, I forgot about this, they kind of snuck it in there, is that they're adding, because apparently there's Bluetooth in there, they just didn't activate it for whatever reason, but pretty soon all Google Home devices are going to also have the ability, just like the Echo does, to be used as a Bluetooth speaker. So soon we're going to be able to pair your iPhone or Android device or your tablet or what have you to your speaker and just use it as a regular Bluetooth speaker, which I say huzzah, because I really actually like the sound of the Google Home. I think a little bit better than the Echo in some ways. So yeah, I forgot about that little tidbit, but that's something I'm genuinely interested in. But yeah, back to the Google, the Android Go. It's meant largely for, very, very basic beginner phones, or, for developing areas, developing countries and things like that. If they have devices in the US that have those types of things, I know it'll be a lot cheaper in some cases, but I probably still, if you at least have the ability, I probably wouldn't recommend those devices if you are blind or visually impaired, because again, a gig of RAM or less, you're looking at not just running your device and your apps, but you're running another layer on top of it. You're often running something like TalkBack, or you're running the magnifier, or both at times. So, you got to think about, you got to, like, you're going to have this extra layer of processing that other general users are not going to have. So, yay for cheaper and yay for the people who need it and can use it, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend these lower end devices for accessibility unless they can really, really optimize the hell out of it, because like I said, if you're running that extra layer of accessibility stuff, I don't know that it's going to run the best. So you're probably going to want to stick to a regular yield Android for that. But I think that's largely it. There may be one or two little things that I missed, but those are a lot of different things that stuck out to me. And it didn't really seem like, a lot of people are like, oh, well, that wasn't very interesting. It's just a lot of, oh, they're talking about the Google Home, the Google Assistant, and just a lot of, tiny little things. But, you look at the bigger picture, we're working our way to, with this AI stuff, you're looking at some pretty interesting possibilities. Maybe not exactly right this moment, but within the next few years, you figure out the basics and add on to it. You're combining, talking to a machine in a more natural way, almost having a conversation, being able to, like, hey, do this for me, and it can ask you questions, you respond. Like the ordering food demo was kind of cool. And then you have your image recognition, not just image recognition, but doing something useful, like, oh, that's a building, that is a McDonald's or whatever. But then giving you some contextual tasks to be able, that you would want to instantly do, not just on the photo, but what the photo is. So if it's a photo of some place, maybe I can get directions, or I can call it. If it's a person, maybe I can get their phone number, or I can, or if it's a signage marquee for some event or something, oh, I can add that to my calendar, or buy tickets to a concert or whatever. So that kind of thing is actually interesting to me. And again, Microsoft, Google, they're open. I like the fact that you can use their stuff everywhere. They're being a lot less restrictive. Yeah, you want to play with it here on iPhone, Android, Windows, whatever, go for it. Yes, I have an iPhone, I have an iPad, but I'm kind of almost curious about Android, especially if they start doing this VPS thing, this indoor GPS or indoor navigation thing, whatever technology I need for that to work when it actually comes out. And if it does work reasonably well, if Apple doesn't do something similar, and as far as Android accessibility is getting better, I don't know. I could be tempted. I've actually been tempted to order. There's a friend of mine at work. He bought a cheaper Android phone just as a secondary device. He's this big Apple guy, which is really funny. I give him crap about it all the time because he's this huge Apple nut, and he starts using this thing because he's tried a couple Android devices before, and he says, I just don't like them. I just don't like the flavor of this Android, or the way the gestures work, or TalkBack isn't responsive. And he he went and switched his SIM card from his iPhone to his Android, and that was like 2-3 weeks ago. And he's like, oh, I'm going to use it for 3-4 days just to immerse myself in it, and then switch back to my iPhone. Well, it's been at least 2, maybe close to 3 weeks, and he's still going Android, and he's like, I kind of like this thing. So, if basically, man, if that can convert him, or if he can be impressed with it, Android's got to be doing something right. Google's got to be doing something right. So I've almost toyed with the idea of buying that phone just to have something decent to play with too, because we all know that my Nexus is useless now, my old Nexus 7. So yeah, I'm just really interested to see what Apple's going to do. Like I said, I don't, if people are talking about, oh, they're going to make a Siri speaker, they're going to make this and that and the other thing. Well, if you're going to do that, you're going to have to, Microsoft and Amazon and Google, they're kind of kicking your butt right now in this smart assistant kind of a thing. You're going to have to ramp that up a bit. Not only that, you have to be tied to Apple's ecosystem. Yeah, you're going to have iTunes in the Windows 10 store, as Microsoft announced last week, but, what if you're like me, who, okay, I've invested a lot in, Apple apps, and I've got a lot of stuff on iCloud, or I've got actually have some photos and things like that. What if I jump ship to Android? Am I going to be able to dump my stuff over there, or be able to use Apple services if there's something I like in Apple that I could use on another platform? I mean, they're just so restrictive, or if I like something else, that Google or Microsoft or another third party makes. There's just certain things due to their restrictions and their walled garden approach that, like, you can't physically do. Like, I can't, you can't have certain things access a certain part of your device, or you can't change, like, your default apps, your web browser, your assistant, your whatever. With how open everyone else is getting, I don't know. I highly doubt that Apple's going to open up, at least to a close degree, to be like, oh, okay, fine. You want to use Google Assistant? Do you want to use Chrome instead of Safari? Go for it. Your default browser, whatever. I just don't see that happening. But main thing is I'm curious to see what Apple's going to do next in about 2 weeks, because I don't really know what they could do. Yeah, they might make an OLED iPhone, which OLED screens are sweet, but aside from that, I don't know, like, what is iOS 11 going to have? They haven't really done anything in AR or VR, and everybody else is, and that's a field that I'm genuinely interested in. I don't know. And Apple's making some really screwy decisions. Like, I just found out the other day, as of the middle of June, you guys might be interested in this, by the way. As of middle of June, it sounds like they're going to require a lot more authentication. So anything that uses iCloud, any third-party app that uses iCloud, you are going to have to set up an individual password for that app. So let's say I use VoiceStream Reader, and I sync all my books and files through iCloud. Well, I'm going to have to set up a separate password in addition to my general iCloud or my Apple ID password for that app. Any app that shares data with the cloud is theoretically going to have to have its own extra password if you want to use cloud services, which, yes, I get that they want to do security, but that sounds like a colossal just pain in the ass. I already have so many passwords as it is, both for work and for home and for God knows what else. Like, now I'm going to have to make and remember more? And I just can't really get behind a password manager. That might be convenient, but like I said, if they get your password manager, your master password from your if they get your master password from your password manager, then you're really boned, because with one password, now they have access to everything. So I don't know that I'm sold on that concept either. Yeah, I don't know. So we'll see how that goes. But maybe they'll talk about that at WWDC in a couple of weeks and maybe make it less unbearable. I don't know. But anyway, that's some thoughts on the Google Keynote. I just, want to give attention to everybody and not just cover Apple, because I think Microsoft and Google are doing some really interesting stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. You might want to look at a Google Home if any of this sounds interesting, because I think you might be able to get them cheap right now, and they're pretty great. Again, check out my Google Home video if you want to check it out. So, yeah, hope you guys found it interesting, and follow me on Twitter at BGFH79. And until next time, I will talk to you guys again later.